Welcome, everybody, to Who's Your Band. We were supposed to have a special guest joining us today, and because of travel delays, he had to reschedule for next week. So Sean will be on next week with our special guest. Let's bring in our co-host, Mr. Sean Morton. How are you, Sean?
I'm great, Jeffrey. How are you?
I'm good. Sean, you had a good night last night. You went to go see Morris Day and the Time?
Yes, our good friend of the show, Andre Holmes, was gracious enough to give me a pair of tickets to the show. We went there. They were a fantastic band live. Funny part is when they they try to bring up some of the ladies to go on stage. And of course, there was about, 7 or 8 65, 70-year-old black ladies coming up there with their canes, shaking their rumps. It was kind of funny.
Rumps?
Their rumps. Yes. Big old dumpers.
Okay, Fred Sanford. Okay, so that was good. So you got to see Andre, and how was it?
Yeah. Oh, they were fantastic. He was playing keyboards last night. He was fantastic. After party was a great little venue in Atlantic City called the Anchor Rock Bar. We got to see Prince's bass player, Mono Neon, who dresses up in complete neon colors. So it's all dark. He just glows like out of this world. And Vernon Reid from Living Colour was playing with them.
Were they doing Prince stuff, or were they doing their own stuff?
Just jamming. And it was just unreal. It was unreal. Plus, there was a great show because Fish was playing on the beach that day. So you saw these sloppy 24-year-old girls with like half their boobs hanging out, completely just destroyed on Molly and Whippets. It was a beautiful sight.
Oh, shit. That's what's up. No, nothing. Okay. So what are we going to do today? What are we going to do today? We didn't have our guest, but see, this is the great thing about Sean and I is that we'll put together a show like in a matter of just a few minutes. So what we wound up doing is we came up with the top albums of the 1980s. Yep. And I just wanted to throw a qualifier in there, Sean. Of course, everyone's going to say Thriller. Okay. Yeah. So Thriller, it's like really you're going out on a limb with that. Anything other than Thriller is open season. You can go Thriller, anything but Thriller. I'll tell you, I'm going to give you a little preview. Here's who's not on my list. Okay.
Why are you doing that for? Because what if they're on mine?
Because if they're on yours, we're not doing this show together anymore. Okay. So if you have Prefab Sprout, Husker Du, or De La Soul on your list, this show has just come to an end.
I almost had De La Soul, I'm not going to lie. But
you did.
I really almost did.
All right, man. All right, man. Start us off. Who is your? Okay, we're doing top 10 bands. Who's your number 10 album?
Oh, we're doing it in that kind of order?
No, we don't have to. You know what? You don't want to do particular order?
I'm not doing because Thriller was my number 1, so I just had to take it off.
Okay, so, you pick anything you want.
We're gonna go random.
We'll go random.
Obviously, I pick one of my favorites, and I can't deny it because even though it's a personal favorite of mine, you can't deny how great of an album it was. It was Appetite for Destruction.
Yeah, I figured you were gonna go with that. I'm gonna take that off my list.
All right, so yeah, it's one of the greatest albums. I think it's the best debut album of all time, and a lot of people will argue, is it Sabbath? Is it Zeppelin?
Van Halen?
Yeah, they're all great picks, but you have to go with Appetite, as my opinion, as the greatest debut album of all time. And I'll tell you what, my second one is Hootie and the Blowfish, but we'll go back to that in another episode, I think. Kicks off with, it has Welcome to the Jungle, Sweet Child of Mine, Paradise City, probably the 3 biggest hits. Even though Paradise City is not my favorite song.
What did you say your top 3 songs are on that album are?
I said the top 3 songs that people like are Welcome to the Jungle, Sweet Child, and Paradise City.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Completely different. My 3 favorites on there are completely different. Or Mr. Brownstone, It's So Easy, and Out to Get Me. So you can't deny how great of an album it is. There's only like 2 stinkers, I think, on that album. I'm not a big fan of Think About You and My Michelle. Otherwise, for me, it's a perfect record. And I think it's probably right behind Thriller as the second best album of the 80s.
I like how you listed all those songs and you didn't even get to my favorite song on the album,
Which is what?
Rocket Queen.
Because it's my least favorite on the album.
Rocket Queen is your least favorite.
Rocket Queen, and I've had this argument with a friend of mine for years.
I don't get it.
I will tell you, I never really appreciated the song until I saw it live. Live, it's a very different song, but on record, I can
I love it. I love it how it's like in 3 different parts. I think I love it. I think it's great. All right, so I will go here, and then what do I want to do here? I have a couple that I think may not have made your list, but I'm going to throw this out there. I'm going to go with 1987's White Snake.
It's a great record.
Okay, and I think when you go back and you really like look at this album, it really is maybe one of the greatest, if not the greatest, heavy metal rock album of all time. And when you just like look at the tracks on it, it opens with In the Still of the Night, real Zeppelin takeoff. It's David Coverdale doing Robert Plant. But then the album has a lot more depth, like Give Me All Your Love, Is It Love, and a huge single, Here I Go Again, which everybody knows. But then I like songs like Crying in the Rain, and then the real heavy, Nice, Slow, and Easy, I think are great tunes. And it's a great band. And I just, when people talk about great 80s albums, I think this album is always kind of like left off. And for me, I have to include it in my top 10.
Yeah, it's not a bad pick at all. I wouldn't pull it off personally. I wouldn't put that on my list, but I went different with my list. I went technically not some of my favorite records, but I have to give them credit because they are just brilliant records. My next one is The Joshua Tree by U2.
I have that on my list. That was going to be my next pick.
So the reason why I put it, I think the first side is probably one of the most solid first sides of any album. You got Where the Streets Have No Name, I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For, With or Without You, Bullet the Blue Sky, 4 of their biggest hits. And I always think of something like this with this album. When you can sell out a giant stadium or a big place like that, when you're advertised as playing this record from front to back, I think that warrants that it's actually a really solid record.
A couple of weeks ago, we had Alan Fuchs on the show, and Alan and I went to that concert. We saw them do Joshua Tree from beginning to end. And what sold me on it was not so much hanging out with Alan, because no one should have to do that, but I just thought seeing the Joshua Tree from beginning to end is a great experience. Yeah, that's a great pick, Sean.
Yeah. I love it.
I'm surprised that would come from you, by the way.
No, because you know what? I had to really when I do these kind of shows, I like to really kind of remove myself a little bit, because I will put all my favorites on there, like De La Soul or something like that, because that's what's up. And but I have to really just give credit where credit's due for great albums that meant a lot for the time period, for the genre, for the year that it came out, and things like that. So I can't deny that record.
All right, so with that said, and when I think about the 80s and growing up in the 80s and what I listened to, I mean, a lot of my picks here are things that I listened to and just was so important for me. And I just thought just really made an impact. And listen, I don't think there's been a better time period of music than the 80s.
I always say the 80s are the greatest.
I think 80s pop. I think nothing beats 80s metal. I think it's great. So I'm going to go with an 80s metal. And a lot of my albums, I think, are going to be along that theme. And I think an album that I think also very overlooked is Queensryche, Operation Mindcrime.
Great record.
Love this. I think, to me, Jeff Tate is in the top 5 singers of all time. It's a concept album about alienation from the eyes of a genius, a junkie, and a street girl. And when you look at the songs, I remember seeing Queensryche opening for, I think it was Priest, on this tour. And they open with Revolution Calling, which is such a great song, great live, great on the album. But then when you look at deeper into the album, songs like I Don't Believe in Love, Eyes of a Stranger, they're so solid. And Tate, just aside from maybe from Dickinson, Dio, I think it comes Tate to me.
Jeff Tate's an amazing artist. When you go see Queensryche without him, you realize how important of the part of that machine that he really is.
Absolutely.
But when you see him solo, it's kind of a little weird because you realize the rest of the band really, that's a band that never should have broken up. And that's a big, massive ego band all across the board.
Agreed. And my third pick is gonna go to the point you just said.
Okay.
Go ahead. I want to hear your next one.
A personal pick. This is a personal pick. A lot of people don't like this album a lot because it was a big changeover. I went with Bruce Springsteen, Born in the USA.
Okay. Well, I don't think it's a bad pick.
It was my introduction to Bruce because of my age. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously you saw Bruce before. He was in the Castiles in the 50s when you saw him.
I did. Yes. Yes. Well, I saw him when he used to open up for Mozart.
That's true. Right. But for me, it's not a rock and roll album like, you listen to Darkness or Born to Run or The River, which is like, if you take 3 albums in a row, that's my pick for the 3 greatest records in a row. If you take Darkness, Born to Run, and then The River. But this was more of a changeover for him because of the 80s, and it was kind of poppy. And people,
but it's cynical. It's a cynical album. It's not a celebration of the United States at all.
No, people think like, yeah, we're born in the USA. No, it's not. That's an anti war song. It's completely different when people think about. But he's got some great stuff on there. I mean, he's got obviously Born in the USA. Dancing in the Dark, I'm not a huge fan of. That's a little too poppy for me. But like No Surrender and Bobby Jean are, I think, 2 of his greatest songs.
Great song. I think Cover Me is a great song.
Cover Me is an amazing one. I'm on Fire is even okay.
That's a good song.
My Hometown is quintessential Springsteen. That's kind of, it's kind of like, oh, I'm from Jersey, that kind of shit again. But I always love it. I was lucky enough when Bruce a bunch of years ago was doing the whole front to back album thing, and he was either doing Darkness, Born to Run, or Born in the USA. And I went with a friend of mine. He was like, please God, don't let it be Born in the USA. And it was. And I was happy as a pig and shit, but he was just completely just.
You can't go wrong with any of those albums.
You can't. So. You really can't, because you gotta remember,
but
his albums are only 45 minutes long. He plays for 3 hours and 45 minutes. So you're going to hear some of the songs from all the other albums anyway. So for me, it was just great because he did it front to back. He did like 6 songs in the beginning, did Born in the USA, and did like another 714 songs after that. So I was totally fine with it. But all in all, it still holds up for me.
Okay. I think my next pick may piss off a few people. I'm hoping you're not one of them.
Okay.
I've been going down a rabbit hole of this band, and in particular this singer. And I really, when it comes to frontmen who have it all, who have the rock and roll look, who has the voice, who had the charisma, who just was like, you had to watch him. I mean, I got to go with Skid Row. Skid Row, the first album, I think is so underrated. Man, I've been watching clips of them opening for Guns N' Roses, and fucking Sebastian Bach, if he's not like the coolest guy you would have ever seen. And it wasn't like he just had the look and showed up. I mean, this guy had the pipes, man. I mean, songs like 18 in Life, Youth Gone Wild, which became like an anthem. I remember when cover bands would do it, everyone would, would just like, with their hands in the air, and ballads like I Remember You. I mean, I really think it is a great debut album. I think it's one of the best albums of the 80s, to be honest.
I can't deny that. I mean, I should have probably put that on my list because to this day, it's still one of my favorite records. I think it was Billy Vera when we had him on the show. And I had to get to go back and look at the episode. I think it was him who said, you'll never love any music more than the music when you were 13 years old. And I didn't, it just started to click that I was 13 in 1989. And this is like probably my favorite year of music because it was the Skid Row, the Warrant, Bon Jovi had New Jersey. Like it was a major
It's all great music stuff, man.
And it's true. Like I still listen to that record all the time. That and Slave to the Grind, I think are 2 of the most underrated albums of that genre.
I think as a band they're underrated. But go back in 1991. They were opening for Guns N' Roses. That had to be the Illusion tour that they were on. Okay, and they're the support act, and they had to blow Guns N' Roses off the stage every night. I mean, they were just so good and so raw, and they can play. They were just really, really like. I like what you said before about bands that shouldn't have broke up. And listen, no disrespect to the guy who's in the band now. He can sing. He's good.
Yeah.
He ain't Sebastian Bach.
No, it's all about ego. It's all about ego, and you can sell out a small club as Skid Row, but you're selling out theaters with Sebastian Bach as Skid Row to this day. And I stand by that.
If something happens where Motley Crue can't honor that commitment next year for the stadium tour.
Yeah.
Okay. And they've been talking about bands who could possibly fill in. I know Rat's been mentioned. What would you think about Skid Row with Sebastian?
Only Sebastian Bach can pull that off with Skid Row, but they won't do it. And if that's the case, if they can't pull off that, I think the only other band that really can step in is Aerosmith.
Aerosmith won't do it.
Aerosmith can't sell a stadium out by themselves anymore.
Well, they were planning on doing that this year. They were doing their 40th anniversary tour with Rival Sons as the opener. That's a great double bill.
Yeah, the Rival Sons is an underrated band, truly underrated band. But I don't know. I don't think anybody could really pull that off besides them. It has to be a certain level, and I mean, unless Whitesnake would do it, but I don't think they would be able to do it either.
I think it'd be interesting. I would have no problem with Whitesnake or Skid Row. I think they have the catalog, and but it would have to be with Sebastian.
I did read a really cool article today, speaking of Aerosmith, where Joe Perry said that it was in the late 2000s, early 2010s that Steven Tyler had requested some time off and wanted to do his own thing, and they wanted to keep the Aerosmith train going, and they almost had Sammy Hagar as their lead singer.
I could see that.
And they were talking about him, Chris Cornell, or Lenny Kravitz filling in.
I would be happy with any one of them.
Any of the three, because Lenny's amazing. Lenny's an absolute monster. All right, my next one. Again, now I said before, I'm picking stuff that deserves to be on the list. Doesn't mean that it's my favorite. I'm not a super huge fan of this band. I like the hits, and that's it. But this is a classic album, and I'm going with Back in Black by AC/DC.
You're not a big fan?
Not a big AC/DC fan. I like the hits. I don't go deep. Like, if you gave me a greatest hits, that's all I'm happy with. But I don't go into like the super deep tracks or anything like that. I only saw them once, and it was with Axl Rose singing, and it wasn't even with Brian Johnson singing. It was very strange. Only stayed for a few songs, and we're like, okay, we can go. But if you look at the record, it's got Hell's Bells, Give Them a Dog a Bone, Back in Black, You Shook Me All Night Long, Have a Drink on Me, which are right there as a greatest hits album.
I love Hell's Bells. It still holds up to me. That's still a great
It's a great record. It was kind of like turning over from Bon Scott to Brian Johnson. So that's why I kind of put it on there. And it's one of the biggest albums ever as far as sales-wise goes, too.
It's such an important album, too, because it's so hard, especially with a band like AC/DC that has such devout fans, and Bon Scott, who was just so iconic in the band. And now he dies. And it's like, one, how do you go back? How do you go on? I mean, Zeppelin never really toured again after right. Queen is touring with Adam Lambert, but it is Queen with Adam Lambert is how it's being built. Correct. And John Deacon never toured. So that AC/DC had to make that decision, and then they come out with this album, and it's just so great. It's so great, iconic. It's it introduces no one knew who Brian Johnson was prior to this, and introduced him, and he just seemed to fit seamlessly, and most people won't even remember the Bon Scott years now.
Well, it's very sad because Bon was amazing, an amazing artist. But Brian, again, you're absolutely right. It's kind of like that changing of the guard where you have two complete different style singers that take over a band, and they're both really good. Like a lot of times a guy will fill in for a long time, and it's kind of like, all right, you still want the old guy? No, I mean, people would be happy if Bon Scott or Brian Johnson were singing for them.
I think there's only a handful of bands. I think you count them on one hand where that's actually happened. Where a guy has established the band, was great, and the next guy came in and kind of made it his band as well.
Yep. Sammy Hagar with Van Halen, and I go with John Bush with Anthrax.
I would have gone Dio with Sabbath.
Well, you cut me off, otherwise I would have went to Dio too.
Okay. Yeah,
like you always do. Anyway, what's your next one?
Okay, here's my next one. This is to piss off Dave Neidl, who is a listener of this, and right now he's really enjoying my list. He's enjoying my list because he loves 80s metal, and he wears only 80s metals shirts and socks, and he's a big 80s metal guy. So just to annoy Dave Neidl, but I also think this is a great album. I'm going to go with Faith by George Michael.
I almost put that on my list.
Did you? Okay, good.
Yeah, I almost did. That's a solid record. Solid record.
It's sure. Listen, it's the first solo album by the former Wham frontman. It opens up with songs like "Faith" and it has "Father Figure" and "I Want Your Sex," which was really kind of racy and controversial at the time. And then beautiful ballads like "One More Try" and "Kissing a Fool," and then more of a dance song with "Monkey." And it really just kind of showed off George Michael's maturity and getting away from really the super pop sound of Wham and creating his own identity as a mega solo artist. And so for me, I'm going to go. I think it was my fifth one.
Fourth, yeah.
Fourth one, yeah.
Plus, you also had that connection with George Michael when you bumped into him in the restroom when you heard the foot tapping.
That's right. And so, so I think just like based on that as well, just hanging out, just doing what guys do.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. Well, so I'm going to go with George Michael.
That side of the fence. So yeah, I'll continue that trend.
Don't judge me, Sean.
I never judge you. You're actually very good in bed, Jeff. What I'm going to go a little different and something that I don't think you're going to see coming from me. I don't think you'd ever.
Is it George Michael Faith?
No. Close. It's a band that you love that you'd never think that I would pick on this list. I'm going with Disintegration by The Cure.
Dude, I was almost going to bring that up next. It's on my list. I can't believe you have that. I can't believe you even know that album.
I love that record.
Never talk about The Cure.
It's a great record. I spent like $40 to buy the vinyl for that friggin' record. Number one, it's a solid record. Pictures of You is a classic song.
Opener.
Yeah, love song. It's become a classic.
Yeah. Everyone covers it. Adele's version became a mega hit.
And for me, one of the creepiest videos that's ever been done for Lullaby.
Yeah.
It's still like, it creeps me out when I see that video. This is with them, Fascination Street too, on this record.
One of the greatest bass lines to open a song ever.
I'm a big fan of The Cure, whether you believe it or not, or even knew that or not.
I did not know that. I did not see that coming from you.
No, it's a great record. There's a couple more you're not going to see coming. Trust me. There's a couple more.
On this album, you left out my favorite song.
Which one?
The super creepy, the super heady, the song that would make you want to cut yourself, Prayers for Rain.
Okay, why don't you play that after the show? That was just for me.
Remember what your wife said? That you need to be nicer to me?
No, I don't listen to her at all. Anyway, so you agree with me on that one then?
Oh, I am proud of you. Not only agree with you, I'm proud of you. I can't believe you picked that. That's a great tune. Great track. Great album. I love it. Love it.
What else you got?
All right. Let's see. I have a couple here, but I know what I'm going to go with here. Just to kind of keep it a little more lighthearted. And I think this is also deservingly should be at number 5 for me because we're right in the middle. I think Journey Escape I think it's also kind of an important album. I think it really, Journey was basically a tale of two different bands. It was a band where they were a progressive rock band where they really didn't have much of a singer. It was Greg Raleigh who would sing. I mean, he was a good singer. I'm not putting it that way, but he wasn't a pop singer. He was the guy who from singing a lot of the big hits in Santana.
Okay.
Change Your Evil Ways. That was Greg Raleigh. And Journey was basically formed out of Santana with Neil Schon and Greg Raleigh. Okay. And then they wind up adding Ross Valerie and Ainsley Dunsbar. And that is the band, but they're not selling records. All right. They come out in 1980, I think, with Departure. And I think that was the album that really, with Steve Perry, and they blow up. Now they become like a stadium act. How do you follow that up? You follow it up with Journey's Escape, okay? Don't Stop Believing, Who's Crying Now? And the deep track, which is one of my favorite songs, is Mother, Father, which is such a great, great, great song. So I think that, can you picture the 80s without Don't Stop Believing?
I can picture life without that song after that stupid Sopranos final episode where it brought the song back into the forefront. And now you have to hear every single drunk bitch at karaoke trying to sing that. If they're not doing Black Velvet by friggin' Alana Miles or Bitch by Meredith Brooks, all these stupid women empowerment songs, You Ought to Know by Alanis Morissette, every broad sings this at karaoke. And they all want to jump in and do Don't Stop Believing by Journey.
Sure, women can do things just as well as men can.
Yes, I understand that. But you know what? I'm not going up there doing hacky shit. You might be fine with it, Jeff. Trust me. I know you're fine with it. Believe me. But it's just cliche. You know what I mean? And it just became one of those songs that got very played out for me.
Don't think... the problem with you, Sean, is you don't know how to have a good time. You don't know how to have fun. You don't think it's fun hanging out, drinking craft beers, and then going up with your buddies and just all singing, having a good time singing Don't Stop Believing.
No, I'd rather get a colonoscopy by Freddy Krueger.
Listen, I think before the summer's out, me, you, Adam Holtz, and Mike, our talent booker, should all go out, have a couple of craft beers with grapefruit in it, and I think we should sing this song, and we should tape it. And
considering there are two fruits and Adam, you know what I mean? Adam's a good guy. I love Adam to death. Adam's my favorite part.
Everybody likes Adam.
Adam's my favorite part of this show. You, I'm looking forward to next week. You know why? You're not here. And Mike, I berate on a daily basis. So you know what? I'm Team Adam, number one. So I'm going with a different pick for my next one. I think you're going to be a little surprised at this one too, Jeffrey. I think this is coming out of left field. I think that I
know what it's not. Go ahead.
It's not Journey.
No, I also know what it's not, but go ahead.
Songs from the Big Chair by Tears for Fears.
Hey, that's a great one. I don't even have it on here.
I know you don't, because my list is killing and yours isn't. It's got Shout, Everybody Wants to Rule the World, Head Over Heels. Three of their four biggest songs.
Three huge songs.
And I thought they were just a very different band growing up. Because again, this is probably 85, I think this came out. But I knew then that this was like a very different kind of band. And they kind of crossed the line. They're one of those bands that metal people would be like, all right, my chick likes this band. You know what? I'll throw them on. Very, I wouldn't say new wave. I'm trying to think like an alternative kind of vibe.
Yeah, I guess you would say they're older. They weren't poppy. They could be played on top 40 radio.
Right.
Especially in the 80s where radio was everything, unlike today. But they could also be played in new wave clubs.
Exactly. That's what they're kind of like they teeter the line a little bit. For me, at least. But I love that record. I bought it on most of these things I have on vinyl.
That's a great one to have on vinyl. I've seen them a bunch of times. They're just as good live as they are on record. That's an interesting choice. Good pick.
Yep. Where you going next?
Okay. You know what, Sean? You've been mean to me. And because you're mean to me, I'm going to piss you off with this pick.
Okay.
I want you to be aggravated. One of your all-time favorite bands, Rush. Rush Moving Pictures. There is nothing better There's nothing better than the opening of Tom Sawyer and how great that was. And when you put on headphones, how that sounded in your ears. And then the radio, the FM radio hit Limelight and the instrumental YYZ. Come on, man. This was a great album by a super talented band that you don't either understand or appreciate. Okay. But
I'm going to break down the fourth wall, Jeff, here. Okay. I'm going to go very personal here for a minute. Okay. December 27th, 1988, I was 12 years old and I found my grandmother dead in her bed. I would rather relive that moment every day of the rest of my life than ever put a Rush record on. That's how much I hate this band. With every ounce of my being.
I can't believe you're saying that.
Most overrated band of all time.
Oh no, this band I can't listen to enough.
Oh God, he's horrible. I think I found the only person whose voice annoys me more than you. It's Geddy Lee.
Yeah, how can you? I don't. You don't like. You can't appreciate Neil Peart, or I hope that. Hope that's a fucking chicken leg in your throat there, mama cass. Alex, dude, I think these guys are just so great. And it's only
I understand why people like them. I do. I understand why people like them. I personally think they are dog shit.
But I also remember, again, we're talking 80s here. I remember every cover band would play them. I remember there was a band called Phantom's Opera, and out of that band came John Alex Such, who wound up becoming the bass player for Bon Jovi,
or Alec John Such, one of the two,
whatever the fuck his name is. You know what I'm talking about.
Research.
Okay, so he was. I saw him play. I was there. Okay. But I remember seeing this band play all the time, and they would open with that. Everyone would wear the Moving Pictures t-shirt. Oh man, they were great. They're so 80s, and it was such a great album. Yeah, I'm more than happy to put this on my list.
Oh, that's you. You have no taste. I am going with, again, like I said before.
This is number 6.
This is my number 6, I believe.
Okay.
No, it's my number 7. So I started. Again, you can't deny this album. It's going to piss some people off, which I like to do on a daily basis. Straight Outta Compton by NWA.
Oh.
Well, listen, I'm not a huge rap guy. It was either this or Raising Hell by Run DMC. So I went with this because I feel like this was the start of the gangster rap genre,
and you're happy about that. You're happy about.
I don't mind. I don't mind.
Great genre of music.
Well, listen, you know what? You can't deny history. You know what I mean? You can't deny history.
Okay,
you can't
go on, dog.
They are. Straight Outta Compton, great song. Fuck the Police, which I don't agree with, but very big song. And my favorite on the album, Express Yourself, which I think is a brilliant rap.
That was a good song.
Hip hop record.
Yeah, it was all sampled.
It spawned off so many people. You know what I mean? It spawned off Ice Cube. It spawned off Dr. Dre. I think Eazy-E would have had I think he would have had a big career had he not, you know what I mean?
Is that true?
Yeah, it was rumored that he was half a fagula. Yeah.
I didn't know that. I thought it was more like.
No. I think he was a little promiscuous, but, he died of AIDS, unlike Magic Johnson, who never had it. But yeah, it was very important record. And I felt weird not putting it on, even though, again, not my favorite genre in the least bit. But I did want to put it on there.
Okay. Okay. Since we have to have a diversity rule on this show,
inclusion, Jeffrey. Inclusion.
I am okay. This is my inclusion. I'm going to go with Prince's "Purple Rain."
It's on my list. It's my next one.
Yeah, you have to put him on there. I mean, It is a great album. Over 25 million records sold. A mixture of funk, heavy metal. It's sexy. Big hits like "When Doves Cry," "Darling Nikki." Here's the song I don't like on it: "Purple Rain."
Me either.
I was never a big, right? I think it just goes on. And a couple interesting stories about that song. He writes the song. Who do you think the first person he called was? You don't know. I'll tell you. The first person he calls is Jonathan Cain from Journey, because he felt after he recorded and before he released it, he thought it sounded too familiar to Open Arms. So he wanted to get So he wanted to get Jonathan Cain's permission, and that, he just wanted to let him know, hey, what do you think of it? Is it too close? Is there anything you would like me to change? And Jonathan Cain was just like, hey, look, I'm just honored that you called me and would even consider something that. Leave it. It's perfect. The other story about with the song Purple Rain was he was looking for someone to write the lyrics, and the person he reached out to was Stevie Nicks. And she just said, this is too much of an undertaking for me. I can't do it.
Wow. I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
But for me, listen, it's a great record. I mean, I'm a Prince fan. I've always loved Prince. I mean, I have a freaking Prince tattoo on my freaking arm. You know what I mean? I've always been a major fan. Of course, you felt it last night at that Morris Day of Time show, too. They did a whole video tribute to Prince.
Did they do any songs?
No, they played a little bit of Purple Rain during the video montage, as you would say. But they didn't physically play. They just played the song over it. And it was kind of weird. And Andre will laugh when he hears this episode. They're doing like all these pictures of Prince, like as a memoriam, and then they would just like throw a Morris Day picture in there. Yeah. It's like, all right, maybe keep it to Prince. You know what I mean? But again, it's a great record.
Did they all do the Bird last night?
They played the Bird, yeah.
Did Andre do the Bird thing? Did he go?
They did, yes.
Andre did this?
Yeah, because they brought him down because he's only 40 and the other guys are in their 60s and 70s. And
he's the baby.
He's the baby of the group, yeah.
He still looks good, though.
But yeah, it was great. It was a great show. But yeah, I agree. You have to put Purple Rain on there. And if you're going to keep in that like 85 genre or 86, I can't say how much I love this album. It's cheesy, it's corny, but it's the start of something that became monumental. And I'm going with License to Ill by the Beastie Boys.
Great album. I was considering putting that on myself.
When you look back at it, when you see a progression of a band and you see how they started off as this campy rap rock kind of thing, and they turned into one of the biggest, most influential bands of all time, really. It's got some, obviously your Fight for Your Rights to Party and No Sleep Till Brooklyn was their big hits, but like you can go to any bar in the 90s that had music playing and you would hear like Girls or She's Crafty. For me, Rhymin' and Stealin' is the winner on this song, on this album by far. But it's a fun record. It's not like later on they started getting a little deep when they were playing their own instruments and they had a little experimental stuff, but they even went back to doing a punk record in the 90s to try and like solidify their stance. But it's a fun record, man, and you can't deny it. You just can't deny this record.
It is a great record. I saw them several times on that tour when they were promoting this, and they would tour with a band called Murphy's Law. Mm-hmm. And it was just so much fun. That when you're talking 80s, that you can't not put, you got to Fight for Your Right to Party. That is an 80s anthem song. 100%.
I almost put Paul's Boutique on there because that's a very underrated record.
It is. It's experimental record, but this is a big record. It wasn't
appreciated until years later.
Correct.
Which is why I didn't put it on there. But yeah, this is the go-to. I mean, it's still... you can't not smile. There's not one sad song on this record.
Yeah, there's not a shitty track. Agreed.
Young, Dumb, and Full of Cum. That's all this record is about.
Well put.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm down to my final three, and you're right. This was a hard list to compile. We would only have five.
Your final two.
I only have two left.
Yeah, because we agreed on a few. Remember?
No, I got to go three.
No, I have to go two.
I got to go three more though.
All right, whatever. Go ahead.
Because I just can't. I can't. Okay, because I have to end with two my 1A and 1B band, but I want to throw this record in there as well. And you can add another one too, Sean. I'm going to go with Def Leppard, Hysteria, not Pyromania. It's the follow-up to Pyromania because I think it's a bigger record. In fact,
absolutely.
Six top 20 hits.
Yep.
And I mean, I love the one that's not was not one of those of the six, was the opening track "Women," which is, not even included a lot in their sets anymore. But I still think it was a great song. But it had songs like "Rocket," "Animal." I think "Love Bites" is such a it's a great rock ballad. "Hysteria" is great. And then, of course, the classic. This is what we should also maybe think about doing at karaoke. If we do two songs, "Pour Some Sugar on Me." That's a fun one.
I can rock that song.
Yeah. I think we're making a plan here for the end of summer.
I don't think that that's a bad pick at all. In fact, I'm actually a little disappointed in myself that I didn't pick that record, to be honest with you. I'm a huge Def Leppard fan, always have been. And again, that comes back to that time period where I was like 12 years old too, where that album was just monstrous. You could not turn on MTV and not see a Def Leppard video at least once every hour. And they would just play different ones because they were all monster hits. You never have a record that is that big.
Not anymore, yeah.
It's so hard to find a record with 6 or 7. I think they were top 10, actually. I don't even think they were top 20. I think they were top 10.
Okay, so you before mentioned something with Springsteen. Hey, top 3 albums by an artist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, is there
in a row?
Is there a better 1-2 punch than Pyromania, Hysteria?
Oh God, yeah. There's tons.
You think? Okay,
there's tons. Yeah, I go the first Pearl Jam records. First 2 Pearl Jam records, I go with. Obviously, first 2 Sabbath records. I'll even go.
Wait. You think they had? And I love Sabbath and I love Pearl Jam, but you think commercially they were as big as Pyromania and Hysteria?
Pearl Jam were, absolutely. Absolutely. Sabbath, no, because you can't count album sales from like the 70s, because there wasn't that many albums that sold trillions of records. And they didn't count them until the 80s anyway. But yeah, I always say, like, as far as 3 albums in a row go, I always go for the first 3 Pearl Jam records. And then I go, like I said before, with Bruce, with Darkness, Born to Run in the River. Those are the 3.
That's a great 1-2-3 punch. Absolutely.
No, totally. So if I get to do 2 more.
You get 2 more. So
I'm all right. So I'm going to go
strong here.
This is off the cuff. Bon Jovi's New Jersey.
I know what, I'm glad you brought up because I'm going to have to leave it off.
Okay.
It's a great one.
They broke out with, Slippery When Wet. But again, another album that had, I think, probably 5 top 10 hits. And again, I didn't do any research on this. I'm just going to guess. You have Bad Medicine.
Yep.
Born to Be My Baby.
Yeah.
Lay Your Hands on Me. Living in Sin.
I'll Be There for You.
I'll Be There for You. So there's your 5 right there. And there's probably more. There's probably more from that record.
Phenomenal album. And I think the guy who I don't always think ever gets like enough love in the band is Richie, even though he's big, but like Bon Jovi is not Bon Jovi without Richie Sambora in it.
Right. I agree.
Great singer, great stage presence, great guitarist.
Oh, yeah. Very underrated. Very, very underrated. I think he's another one who has a special tone to his guitar sound too.
Yes.
And I think that once he was gone, the songwriting kind of dropped off a little bit.
Oh, 100%. I mean, he gave him that little bit of like rock and roll, like a heavier, little bit of an edge. John became a little bit more poppy, country-ish.
True, which I didn't mind. I liked the Lost Highway record a lot, which was kind of like their kind of crossover country-ish kind of vibe. I really was a big fan of that record. But again, nothing's going to beat New Jersey. Plus, I'm from New Jersey. So it's kind of like an homage. You know what I mean?
No, you're from New Jersey?
Yes. And you're from Staten Island. Did you ever work for CBS Records?
I did.
And you owned a record store in Staten Island, right?
I did own a record store in Staten Island.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. And you liked White Tiger.
I did like White Tiger. I would go see White Tiger, as a kid.
I listen. See, I listen.
Okay, good. All right. Well, here's another thing. If you would have hung out with like a teenage Jeff in the 80s, I was obsessed by this band. That either my first favorite or my second favorite band. Which maiden album did you pick? Which one? Which maiden album did you pick? That's going to be number 1. But okay, you had to ruin it. But I'll go with. No, I'll go with the maiden album now. Then I'll end with this. With this. Okay. So the maiden album that I picked was Number of the Beast. There is not a better Maiden album.
No, I agree.
Peace of Mind is fantastic. It has Revelations on it. It has Flight of Icarus. It's great. But this one, man, this introduced Bruce Dickinson to the band. It's the first album with them. It has if I had to pick one song, I could only listen to one song for the rest of my life. It's Hallowed Be Thy Name. It's the best fucking metal song ever written. It's great. It's perfect. It's Bruce voice at his best. It's Steve Harris's greatest playing. I can't get enough. I never hear enough of this song. But then you also followed up with Children of the Damned, 22 Acacia Avenue, Run to the Hills. This is such a phenomenal album. It's one of the best albums of all time. It's the best metal album of all time.
It's a great record. I mean, my favorite song of theirs is not on this record, but it kind of sums up my relationship with you. And I really mean this. It's Wasted Years.
I thought you were going to say the evil that men do, but all right.
No, Wasted Years. Yeah, listen, I'm a huge Maiden fan too, and I have to agree with you. It's still their best record. I'm a big fan of Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. That's one of my favorites too. I play that all the time. But yeah, Maiden is one of those bands that it just infuriates me that they're not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But we've talked about this a million times too. It's infuriating how they are not.
Them and Pat Benatar should both be in the Hall of Fame.
Well, let's not go down a wormhole here because I'll berate you for the next 13 minutes. But my last pick, if you're a metal fan, a lot of people will say that this is the greatest metal album of all time. Not Iron Maiden, nothing by Black Sabbath, nothing by Pantera. I'm going Master of Puppets from Metallica.
That's a good pick. I didn't put Metallica on this list, but guys, I want to hear.
Now, Ride the Lightning, I actually prefer to Master of Puppets, and people always say, "What do you out of your freaking mind?" But it's just the way that I like. It's just what I like. But Battery, opening up with Battery, is just a brutal way to open up this record. Master of Puppets again. Classic song, Leper Messiah, which is a very, very underrated song. I think it's one of the best songs they ever did and never got the credit that they did. And then, Where You Belong, Sanitarium, which I think is their first kind of like dipping their toes into the slower ballady shit. Even though it's a heavy song.
Right, they're taking their time.
They're taking their time with it. I love the record. I think it's Orion, which is a killer instrumental. It's an 8-minute instrumental song that people will never turn off. I mean, how rare is that? And Damage Incorporated too, which is still it's a great closer to this record. I love it, and I'm happy with my pick.
Well, I can't argue with that. All right, so let me get to my last one, Sean. And again, I was saying before, if you would have hung out with a young Jeffrey Paul, my favorite band was Black Sabbath. So this album is Black Sabbath, Heaven and Hell, and here's why it's so important to me. It's Ozzy left Sabbath. And I remember being at like parties. I was like, you remember when you go to a party, like when you're in high school, there'd be girls and you're drinking a beer, and I'd be hanging out, and I look like the depressed artist guy. And I was really upset. Why? Because I'd be talking to girls like, I can't believe Ozzy left. I don't know what this guy's going to be like. And these girls would be like, what the hell are you talking about? Because no girls were into Sabbath.
No.
But I obsessed on Sabbath. They were my favorite band. I think we talked about my denim jacket. I had the cross on the back. Yeah. It said Black Sabbath on it. But this is the first album, after Ozzy leaves with Ronnie James Dio. And you know what? It's a different sound, but it is great. It's still great. Like the opening song, Neon Nights, got you right away. And that was important to Sabbath fans because you didn't know what it was going to be. And it was so super hard. It was great. And then you had Children of the Sea. And then when you flipped it over to side two killer tracks, Wishing Well and Die Young. And I just think these are this was such an important album for Sabbath, because if this doesn't take off, they're probably done.
Yeah.
Okay. They do a 10-year career and that is it for them. Because remember, this came out first and then Blizzard of Oz came out.
Right.
And that just took off. And that was like Randy Rhoads, and Ozzy comes out with two sick right off the bat solo albums. So who knows what would have happened? But Heaven and Hell for me is going to close out my top 10 list here.
I don't think that's a bad pick. I really don't, because again, you got to remember, like we said before, this is a band that was just monstrous, the biggest metal band of all time still to this day. And yeah, they had some real stinkers after Ronnie left. You know what I mean? Some really bad records.
Yeah, like Born Alive with Gillan wasn't that great. Anything I think with Morton, I really didn't enjoy.
Yeah, none of that really holds up at all. But Ronnie was just a force to be reckoned with. And to this day, I think people will go on record and say he's probably the greatest heavy metal singer of all time.
I just want to shout out a couple of our listeners.
Sure.
Nikki K. Nikki, you posted about your list, and I loved your list. I wanted to put this album on my top 10. It just didn't make the cut, but he had wrote down Judas Priest Screaming for Vengeance. Okay. And it's a great album. I don't think there's a better, like how like one song blends into another song type of thing, like Eruption into You Really Got Me. Yep. I don't think there's anything better than the Hellion into The Electric Eye.
Yeah, it's a great record, and we're just talking about that being like metal people. As metal fans, you can say that's definitely a top 10. If you're going full spectrum, it doesn't make a top 10. But if you're a metal fan, it 100% does.
Well, yeah. Well, this is our list, and this to me really embolized the 80s. I mean, I know we're leaving off symbolized.
I wish you had an embolism. Jesus Christ.
Maybe. I'm making up words.
Maybe you did have an embolism. Maybe that's why you're slurring.
You couldn't let it go, could you? Yeah, but we could have been like fucking Rolling Stone hacks and say, listen, she's so unusual. Madonna's Like a Virgin. We could have put the High Infidelity. We could have put that on our list. But then everybody has that on the list. And what would make that compelling to listen to? But you didn't know where we were going with these lists.
We actually have more in common than we thought.
We did, but we went everywhere from Metallica, right? From Journey to George Michael.
Yep.
Okay, to NWA, and we almost had De La Soul on.
We almost did. That's what's up, though. I gotta tell you. But listen, I'm very proud of this episode, Jeff.
I was looking forward to it. I really was.
I'm very proud of it. The minute you texted me, and I was like, "All right, let's do it." And then I think it was like a half an hour later when you called me, I was like, "Yeah, we gotta do 10." There's no way we could have done 5. I could have done 20. I could have done a top 20 easily, but that would have meant spending another hour with you.
Yeah, we could take an hour of each other's, and then I think the statute of limitations.
No, it's kind of, I really get about 12 minutes, but I can't do a 12-minute podcast.
No.
You know what I mean? I have to stretch it out a little longer. But this was a fun episode. We're going to have fun doing these going forward too. I think we've talked about it, and I think we should do like a best of list every once in a while too.
We'll do that. And maybe what we'll also do is, for our listeners, bring in some special guests to hear about like what their take on some stuff.
Sure.
That'd be nice to hear. And then listen, guys who are listening, please, keep subscribing. We're back with the Be Terrific channel or wherever it is on YouTube. So we're back up to about 14,500 subscribers. It would be nice to get that number up to around 20,000 subscribers. So please, if you haven't subscribed, keep subscribing and reach out to your friends. Every little bit really helps us.
I agree. And we will see you next week with a Sean Morton solo show.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.